Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bears on Tap, a podcast about the Chicago Bears presented to you by On Tap Sportsnet. I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. You can follow me on Twitter at Bdon300, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ron and Quintin. You can follow Ron at Loose on Tap. He's up in the left-hand corner. And then you could follow Quintin at Butkus Stats, and he is on the bottom shelf of the screen this evening. But it's game week. So week one of the NFL season. The first game of the NFL season is tomorrow night with Rams-Bills, but we are here to discuss our Chicago Bears. They are hosting the 49ers at Soldier Field. There's new turf. Ron, we'll talk about the turf a little bit later on in the show. But first and foremost, let me check in with my co-host, and then we'll get into the festivities for this week. Ron, how are you today, my guy? It's been a while since we've talked.
Yeah, it feels good to be back talking some Bears football with you guys, and I'm just here to prepare myself for Sunday. I can't wait. It's finally game week, boys. I'm so excited. Happy to be back talking football with you guys.
Q, how about you?
Man, this is the best week of the year. Like, ever since the end of the draft, that last, that Mr. Irrelevant pick, it's just been like trying, and not just from a content perspective, but from just a general fan perspective, trying to find stuff to talk about, to care about, to make into news, try to find little itty bits of relevant topics, and that's done. We're here.
It's over.
We made it to the finish line, and it's time to start watching real football every single week. What is it now? Three days of the 7 days in a week. We get NFL football for the next 5 months. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
The quest to 17-0 starts this Sunday. But week one opponent is a team that we played last year in the San Francisco 49ers. Some things have changed, though. Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the starting quarterback this Sunday, or at least until that changes. But right now it's Trey Lance. And Trey Lance is a guy that, for lack of better terms, just kind of came out of nowhere and jumped in front of Fields on the draft board, in NFL GM's eyes, and all sorts of stuff. So not only you taking that into consideration, you taking the fact that the Niners did end up picking Lance over Fields. So with those two motivators for Fields, what do you think like that will factor into his type of preparation and performance for this game, knowing that it's like, hey, this guy kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't like that Trevor was ahead of me to begin with, and now you put Trey ahead of me too. And then it's the team that picked Trey Lance as well. So,
yeah, I mean, he his whole life from like his junior year of high school until the day he was drafted, he was either number one or number two on all the ranks, and he was always battling with Trevor Lawrence for it. And then Trey Lance just leapfrogged him out of nowhere. And I mean, honestly, no one saw him falling that far in that draft, like falling to 11. That was insane. I'm so happy it happened. Going into that draft, I thought he might have been the best quarterback in that draft. And I still think that might be true. I'm excited to watch him play. Like we were talking about last week, Justin Fields got that dog in him. I know that it makes him work a little harder. He likes that chip on his shoulder and that little extra motivation from it. And I love to see it. I'm excited to watch him play, and I'm hoping he counts out the draft picks as he scores touchdowns.
Yeah, and Q, you said it best, right? Chip on his shoulder. And he's going to play like that, I think, all season long. He's heard the critics all off season talking about, how bad he was in his rookie year and, he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that. He hears all the naysayers talking about, he's the fourth quarterback off the board in that draft. And, Trey Lance went before him and Zach Wilson and, and Trevor Lawrence. And, yeah, like you said, Q, I hope he's counting picks on his fingers after he scores touchdowns, because I'll tell you right now, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think he should have slipped beyond the top 6 in that draft, even if he was the fourth quarterback taken. The fact that the Bears kind of lucked out, truthfully, and got him at 11, and how good he's looked in the preseason. I mean, and Darnell Mooney said it too, guys. I know you both probably saw the quote, and for our listeners, hopefully you guys did too. Darnell said that they've been running like 3 to 4 plays the entire preseason. It's been the very elementary base concepts of this offense. Like, wait till they at least start to take the training wheels off. Who knows what Fields can do in this offense, and it's tailored to his strengths. I hope the Bears just mollywop the 49ers and Justin's running off the field, just counting those picks up on his hands, staring at him like Patrick Mahomes did last season. I'm ready for it. Like you said, he's got that dog in him. I'm ready to see it on Sunday.
See, and I think, too, with the Bears, it's a team full of guys that have something to prove. It's not just Justin Fields. It's the Darnell Mooneys of the world. It's the David Montgomerys of the world. Talk about a guy like Tevin Jenkins. He's trying to prove what he can do to even our team, much less the rest of the league. You know what I'm saying? So I think going into this week's matchup, you're 7-point underdogs at home. You have a team that, honestly, if you take out, like, let's play hypothetical. Obviously, I know the Niners ended up getting to the NFC Championship, and that all ended up turning out. But if they don't beat the Rams, nobody's talking about the Niners how they're talking about them right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Rams, Week 17, the game that got them into the playoffs, if they don't win that game and they sit at home just like us, the whole media is not sucking them dry like the way they are right now. And it's most certainly not a 7-point line. Injury-wise, going into this game for us, so there's really no injuries. There's 2 people on the injury report. Wide receiver Velus Jones did not practice today on Wednesday. And then defensive lineman Dominique Robinson was limited with a knee injury. And then on the flip side of things for the 49ers, their practice report for today, the did not practice was George Kittle for a groin injury, and then Daniel Brunskill with a hamstring. Limited Dre Gunlaw, linebacker, and then full participants, even though it's not going to matter. I'm going to say it how I want to say it because it's our podcast, but Jimmy Garoppolo, he's the full participant for this week. Eric Armstead, full participant. Mike McGlinchey, my guy from Notre Dame, full participant. And then Oren Burks. I challenge you guys to say full participant 5 times in the span of 10 seconds because that was my tongue twister of the day. But no huge injuries. But if Kittle's not 100%, you got to think, like, where are those targets going to go? Because they can't. I say they can't. They can't just give it to Deebo Samuel every play, but then we'll get to Sunday and he'll have like 35 touches. But where else do you think some of those touches go? Because I know they got quite a few talented receivers in the room.
Man, I mean, I love Brandon Ayuk. He was one of my favorite players in his draft class. He's a guy who hasn't gotten enough looks, enough targets in San Francisco, as far as I'm concerned. And he's a guy who's kind of suffered from Jimmy Garoppolo not being the deep ball passer that a lot of quarterbacks in the league are, because that's really where he wins, is deep down the field. There are a lot of times I know I've seen 49ers fans talking about it before, of like, Ayuk's getting open down there. It's just the throw's not being made, or it's not being considered because it's not really a throw that is the most capable thing for that quarterback, which can be fine. It just sucks for Ayuk. And as a guy who really, really likes watching Ayuk and was really big on him in the draft, one of the things that I was pretty excited about in fantasy this year was picking up Brandon Ayuk because Trey Lance has a big arm. And as I started to watch more Trey Lance film, I kind of fell off that train a little bit recently. But that was my initial thought, was that getting Brandon Ayuk with a quarterback who can sling it is going to do so much for his career. But I'm not as sure of that anymore. But as far as where targets can go, I mean, I think Deebo and Ayuk can do a lot of damage. Kyle Juszczyk is one of the most unique players in the league, honestly, after watching their film. I mean, he lines up out wide. He lines up in the backfield. He lines up as a tight end. He motions in and out of every spot. The pure amount of mental capacity that it takes to do all he does on the field is a ton, let alone the physical capability that it takes. He's an impressive player. And I think he'll definitely get some touches and targets out of that.
It's just a football guy.
Yeah. Just an old school football guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and Q's right. I mean, not much to add there, but Debo's going to be targeted a ton. I mean, that's just kind of self-explanatory at this point. I think Ayuk is kind of the wild card. Like Quintin said, can they push the ball down the field to Ayuk where he's the most valuable? if they can, then yeah, I think he's going to be valuable and get a lot of targets there. But I think even with that, right, like Kittle is just so valuable over the middle and just as that safety blanket for any quarterback. I mean, that's kind of what most tight ends have become in today's NFL for a lot of their quarterbacks. It's going to be really interesting to see how they spread the ball around. I mean, again, if we're being totally truthful, like you said, I mean, they have one of the most unique fullbacks in the league. And on top of that, they have a very good run game. So, they're going to pound the rock. They're probably going to try a lot of play action, trying to catch the Bears sleeping. Maybe that's where they try to hit Ayuk with some of those targets down the field. But if I'm a betting man, I would not be surprised if Deebo Samuel touches the ball 35 times on Sunday. I mean, that's completely plausible at this point, in my opinion.
If you haven't drafted your fantasy team for,
take
Deebo
Samuel.
or put him on like a DFS slip for this weekend because he's going to get a lot of touches.
So come to think of it, as Ron was talking, this just dawned on me. When I was watching through Trey Lance's tape, the first game his first start was against the Cardinals last year in a game where George Kittle was out. And I remember watching it all and then watching the second game and being like, man, they're using a lot less 2 running back personnel now. Because through that Cardinals game, it was over like half the game. They had 2 running backs on the field in Elijah Mitchell and Kyle Juszczyk. So Juice is the guy. Like that's the guy who's gonna really make that offense go, whether it's actually touching the ball or not. And they kept the ball on the ground a lot, but he also did a lot in the passing game, whether it was motions, creating space. He was very involved.
Tinfoil hat theory. Deebo got his money. He doesn't care anymore. He's just there so he doesn't get fired. But yeah, we didn't talk about Elijah Mitchell. That is an emerging back in this league right now. Someone that you definitely want to keep an eye on. They've been playing pretty well so far in their career, and then they have a quality offensive line. It's never really been an issue. So from a pass rush perspective, like you really have to be able to get home. Our next comment in here, he says, Scott Crawford says, Eberflus is going to throw the kitchen sink at Lance. I think blitzing is going to be something that's key this week. Like send Roquan on the blitz, send extra pressure because like you talked about when you said you watched his film, you said he hasn't looked comfortable in any of the tape where it's just like, he's out there like a chicken with his head cut off. Young quarterbacks and pressure do not mesh well, and especially young quarterbacks that don't have their Pro Bowl tight end and pressure, it could be a disaster for him.
Yeah, so what I actually noticed was that I was impressed with his ability to navigate pressure and his ability to keep his eyes up as he was scrambling. Those were 2 of the things that he did do well on film. Most of the issues I saw came when there's a lot of guys in coverage and he doesn't know what coverage it is. And he's just kind of a deer in the headlights. Like when he threw 2 picks in those 2 starts that he had, both were against middle field open, 2 high safeties. He wants to attack the sidelines more than the middle of the field, it seemed like to me. So I think you want the two high looks quite a bit, which can be challenging against San Fran with their run game because you need to stop their run game first and foremost, or else they'll never stop running. It's amazing how that logic works, but
it's the same logic that we have when we say run the damn ball, stop the damn run.
I want to see Jackson and Brisker being too high pretty much all game. Now, like I said, they need to stop the run to make that a reality. But he also, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. So he threw 2 picks against 2 high safeties, and he had 2 more almost interceptions against 2 high. Which we're only talking about like 80 throws, and that was 4 interceptable balls. So probably not even 80 throws, probably like 50 throws and 4 interceptable balls.
With the way their offense runs, they're not throwing it 80 times.
Yeah. So like to me, keep guys in coverage. I'm not too worried. Like what I worry about with blitzing is that you're just chasing a guy who's faster than you, and he kept his composure fairly well under pressure, and got the ball out some of his best plays were under pressure when he was just natural in it and he wasn't thinking. So make him think is more kind of my thought.
Yeah, it feels like Lance, especially now early in his career, where we've seen it with a number of quarterbacks, right? Like Mahomes admits that he just recently learned how to start reading defenses. Like a lot of these guys are truly athletes at the position, and that's why they can play quarterback to the high level that they do, right? They have the freak arm talent, they have the ability to run. I mean, hell, Justin Fields at any point in time is probably at least what the fourth, fifth fastest guy on the entire field, right? With 4.5 speed, like he's no joke, and he's a quarterback. I really think that is such a great observation, Q, and I'm glad you bring that up because you have to imagine, right? Especially Eberflus and Williams are sitting there watching the tape. They're probably seeing that, and they're like, okay, let's confuse the shit out of this kid this week. Let's roll coverage late. Let's roll that guy over the top late and that he doesn't see. Let's have that linebacker up at the line of scrimmage faking blitz that kind of just drops into a soft coverage and maybe gets right in the throwing lane. Just throw those crazy looks at him that he's not ready for. And as much as you get coached up in a season, until you see it and until you're competing against it on a regular basis, you're not gonna get that familiar with it, right? Like you can sit there and pretend you learned it all you want, against your own guys, right? Like Bdon says, against your own Jimmys and Joes. But at the end of the day, until you see it on a football field at true game speed, how is he going to react? And I think that's going to be the key. I love that observation. I mean, especially now, right, with the 42 versus the old school 34 that they were running, you're going to see probably a lot less blitzing. I mean, they'll probably blitz, don't get it twisted, but they'll probably get a lot more creative with the blitzing. I think you'll see like maybe Brisker drop down and come on a blitz off the edge, or maybe they'll send a corner and have Brisker fly out and take a guy in man, or have Jackson do the same on the other side. I'm just excited to see. I'm excited to see truly, like, as I think as excited as Bears fans are to see what the offense does this week and how they open the playbook. I'm just as excited to see what the defense looks like because, quite frankly, we haven't seen a 40 front defense in almost a decade.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be kind of cool to see that again, and especially the Tampa 2 inspired look that a lot of us grew up watching with those 2000s Bears teams. So I'm excited to see how they run the system, and more so into your point, Quintin, how they kind of try to tease and trick Trey Lance into doing something stupid.
Well, throwing it back to the Tampa 2 discussion, like the first game I reviewed, Cardinals run a bear front most of the game, bringing 5 guys, most plays. They're really attacking. His playmaking and athleticism shine through more in that game than in the second game, which was against the Lovie Smith decoordinated Texans, where it seemed like Kyle Shanahan, to me, was really protecting Lance in that game, was really trying to simplify everything for him and give him easy stuff that he couldn't make mistakes with. And he seemed much more hesitant and careful, or not careful, but just not convicted with his decision making.
Yeah, you're an NFL quarterback, so you better be fucking balls to the wall on the decision that you make. Because if you throw a chicken shit pass, you're going to be looking at the back plate of some defensive back as he's just doing the Bdon, primetime shuffle down the sideline. But especially this week too, because I know Scott from Iowa called for 3 turnovers. I think this could be a couple turnovers. I don't know if I'll say 3 because that's a lot has to go wrong for the Niners, but I could see at least 1 interception and then a scenario where we get like Robert Quinn in there or Travis Gibson in there and they are able to get a strip sack, because the way this defense works is it's going to be the strength of this team. Like the offense right now, it still remains to be seen what we're actually going to get. Obviously, all of us have high expectations for the offense, but I wouldn't say high expectations, but higher expectations than we've had in years past for our offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, if this is a team that wants to compete and win more than 5 or 6 games, the defense is going to have to help carry that. Like offensively, we'll need the points, but week in and week out, can we say that we're going to be able to get 24, 27, 31 points? Probably not. So defensively, we have to be able to hold teams in that 24, 21 point range. And in this NFL, it's not easy to do. I know me and Q have talked about it before, but it's got to be about complementary football for this team, and especially a young team with a new head coach. I think a lot of these games will be able to come out and punch teams in the mouth. This week, especially, where the Niners come in riding high off an NFC Championship visit. They bring back most of their starters, right? The only one that isn't actually playing this week. I don't know if it's confirmed, but he wasn't on the injury report, Jimmy Ward. And I know you said something about it, Q. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But if Jimmy Ward is not in the game, that's huge for our receivers to be able to attack the third level of that defense, the safeties.
And they did have a few changes, like their interior O-line is all new. 3 new guys. One of them was a second-round pick last year, but he didn't play. I'm not sure if that was injury or not. He only had like 5 snaps on the year. That's Aaron Banks at right guard. But at center, they're starting Jake Brendel. They had Alex Mack last year, the former Falcon. And they have a 4th-round pick, Spencer Burford at right guard.
Yeah. Banksy's a dog. He went to Notre Dame. He was under the stand. Like, he played the last few years as a part of, honestly, the best line that I've seen outside of McGlinchey and Nelson. But I still think regardless of that, like when you have, Williams on the outside and McGlinchey on both tackle positions, like you're set.
Yeah. And then they went and paid Charvarius Ward to play corner for him. Like, that's a big upgrade on their defense from what they had. They were dropping Josh Norman.
Yeah, I was about to say, dude, right when you said that, all I saw was the fucking white 41 in my eyes. And I'm like, Josh Norman was getting like legitimate burn on this team last year. And it blew my mind.
And then they also, I think it's DJ Jones at nose tackle. He went up to Denver. So it's Javon Kinlaw's time to prove that he is worth having on their team. For them. I mean, he
not just worth the contract, worth actually even being on the team.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done much for it. He only played 8% of the snaps last year, and again, he might have been injured.
South Carolina, right?
Or no, not even. He didn't even play enough snaps to qualify for my ratings last year. So,
so in essence, he's not a real person.
He's talented, and the reports out of camp are that he's looking good, but not a real person.
Yeah, not a real person. What was your fun fact about Javon Kinlaw? Did you have a fun fact about him?
Oh, I did not. The fun facts are NFL draft only.
I was gonna say, I feel like for anybody that didn't catch the draft special, please go back and listen to it. If nothing else, for the fun facts of Q's draft profiles, because some of them were epic. I mean, some of them you're just like, how the hell did you figure this out? And and you had the story, right? You'd reach out to people that were like knew them or whatever, and were like, I need a fun fact.
I was reaching out to cousins, aunts, uncles, trying to like high school friends, just trying to get the dirt.
Jesus.
Incredible.
So, yeah, offensively going into this game, what would you guys like? Ideally, what would you say is a good performance from the Bears this week offensively?
Ooh. 24 points and north of 300 yards of total offense. I think it's a good start for this team because I feel like so many times last season, like, this team struggled to eclipse that 300-yard mark as a total unit. Obviously, don't get it twisted. Would love to see 100 yards out of Montgomery and 300 out of Fields. The greed is seeping in and makes me want to say that. But very realistically, I think, somewhere in the 225 to 275 range for Fields in terms of air yards would be great. Obviously, you figure he's probably going to have at least 30 to 40 rushing yards. That's just probably going to be the name of the game for him. And then you would hope a guy like Montgomery can find 70 to 100 yards against this. I mean, again, it's a very good 49ers defense. Like, I think we need to kind of run it. Like, I had to remind myself that, like, this is a team that carried a very struggling Jimmy Garoppolo to the playoffs last year and deep into the playoffs.
Now he's Jimmy Gulagio.
Yeah, now he's Jimmy chilling on the bench. But I mean, I really think a very fair performance out of this team is somewhere between 20 and 24 points. Like, I think that if they walk away, like if this is a barn burner and it comes down to the end and they lose by like 2 points and they score over 20, I'm not terribly mad at that result. Granted, I think they can absolutely win, right? We had it over here earlier in the comments from Scott, Bears by 100 this weekend. But I think that 20 to 24 point range for me is kind of that sweet spot with, 3 to 330 yards of total offense, I think would be nice.
Q, what about you?
4 drives of 50 yards or more and 2 red zone touchdowns. That's what I want to see. I want to see that they can maintain a drive and that they can score in the red zone. Because if they can show those 2 things, then it's only going to get better from there. If they can't do either of those things, I start to worry.
All right, so I'm going to go super meatball. This is going to sound crazy, right? You guys are going to be like, all right, what are you talking about? I do not want Justin Fields to get sacked one time. Not once. He can get tackled when he runs, right? Like when he runs and he leaves the pocket, if he doesn't slide, which we know he's not a talented slider, that's fine. But week 1, first week of the season, the entire world has talked shit about how bad the Bears' offensive line, ourselves included, go out there and keep Justin Fields off the dirt, give him time to throw, and give that running game time to attack, and the rest takes care of itself.
But as Ron would know, an offensive lineman's perfect game is a game in which their quarterback does not get sacked. I would like to see that from this makeshift offensive line. Going to knock on wood because I don't think it's going to happen, but why not us?
Nick Bosa is going to be tough. I mean, so I was curious when putting together my game preview whether he played a side or not. He's like a 50-50 split either side. He's going to be testing Braxton Jones early and often. And I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll play both sides and be testing Larry Borum too. We'll find out. But hopefully his Chicago roots come out in him and he just doesn't have that good a game. I don't know if y'all know this. His great grandfather is Tony Accardo, the Chicago mob boss, the old Chicago mob boss. Once upon a time.
That's dope. Also, shameless plug for you, Quintin. People can go read your preview over at ontapsports.com. And we highly encourage it because if you like numbers, Quintin's previews are literally tailor-made for you on a silver platter. If you like stats and numbers like me, because I'm a nerd at that shit too. And I'm excited to read it. I'm going to read it as soon as we're off the show. So I'm encouraging everybody else to. Again, shameless plug for your great work, Quintin. We have to get that in there.
Go check it out. I put hours and hours of work into these game previews. So I love seeing them do some numbers.
I like numbers. I'm just not a numbers guy myself. So it's good to have a numbers guy on the show because I would be sitting here like this. There was one show I think I held up. I was like 4. So guessing if you can't see us on the screen. But yeah, I am the resident dork. But yeah, other than that, offensively, like, I want to see some sort of rhythm too. Like, you don't want to see what we saw in the first week of the preseason where we're sitting here at halftime and it is whatever the 49ers have to 0 or 3. I'd like to see the expectations are so goddamn low. Score a first half touchdown, okay? Just if you don't do anything else in this game, at least give me hope going into the half, right? But I think there's going to be a lot more than that. I know we talked about it, but Justin Fields is poised to have a breakout year, and what better game to start than week 1? So secondary is not the best that he's going to see all season, so why not get guys like Velus Jones and Darnell Mooney involved early? Cole Kmet, a lot of people have been talking about him having a big year, so I just did the Birdman hand rub. Like, I'm thinking about my guy Cole Kmet finally getting involved in the offense, but there's so many different guys that are hungry in this offense for opportunity, and it has to start week 1. We have to start with some sort of pace to this season because if we come out there and look like shit week 1, it's just like, well, here we go again. Because the Bears for the last, honestly, ever since we've started this show, Ron, even when it was the many co-hosts before you guys, there has always, always, always been like a 5-game losing streak, and we cannot afford to have one of those this year. I think Justin Fields starts this season off with, I'll give you a stat line, Ron, since you kind of put out a stat line. I'll say Justin Fields, 300 yards, 3 total touchdowns Sunday. Am I crazy? Am I nuts? I said 300 total, so like we know we're not going to get 300 in the air.
Right. Could be rushing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he just runs for 299 throws for a yard.
I was just say if I'm going to throw, we know you have Bdon onomatopoeias. I'm going to throw you a Ron onomatopoeia here really quick, and let's call a spade a spade. We know you're crazy, period. But from a football perspective, my friend, I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, fuck. We saw Justin Fields in the Cleveland Browns game in one half put up 156 yards through the air in one half. I mean, that's pretty fantastic.
Preseason or not, and he had a perfect quarterback rating. So his passing total for this weekend is 198.5 yards. So yeah, here, beat on same game parlay of the game. Justin Fields over 198.5. Justin Fields over 34.5 rushing. Chicago Bears money line. It already hit.
Do y'all know what he did last year against San Fran?
I don't have the stats in front of me, but I do remember him having a pretty.
He had one of the craziest fourth down plays I've ever seen in my entire life.
175 passing yards, 103 rushing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown.
Dude, now that you think about it,
278 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I bet on his passing yards last year in this game now that I think about it, so I have to do it again. Because I can't be wrong twice, because then it would be a mistake, and then it's actually – it's not gambling if you win, right?
As long as you break even.
Yeah. Well, 54% or whatever it is, but some other notes. So we always talk about it before a game, but the Bears for this week are 7-point underdogs. And Quintin, you said something about 42.5, but I see 40 for the total for the game.
It might have come down. I think it was 42.5 when I bet it yesterday.
Okay,
maybe it was 41.5. I bet it was 41.5.
So now the over/under is 40, and then a couple other just interesting lines that we saw when we were all going ooh and ah when we were looking at these before the stream was Cole Kmet 33.5. Receiving yards, that's a very low number for Kmet. Mooney's number is 57.5, and then they have Montgomery on there for 15.5 receiving yards and 53.5 rushing yards. So that's one thing that Quintin, I know you can explain this a lot better than I can, but a lot of betting value on betting underdogs, even in props, because the lines are, what would you say, maybe deflated the other way, right? Like, you're telling me David Montgomery can't get 54 rushing yards?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some value there at 54. I mean, that seems low. I mean,
if he just does one of his David Montgomery runs, if he just does the run once, it's over.
Hey, they usually come in the first few weeks of the season too. So, I mean, it makes sense. He's a bruiser and he's healthy right now. He's not banged up yet. I mean, he could break that in the first half with one big run. I mean, I'm not saying he will necessarily, but 54, I feel pretty solid at 54, unless Vegas knows that Khalil Herbert's getting more run than I think he is.
See, and that's what happened to me. My first lock of the year in college was unfortunately unlocked when Chris Tyree got 6 carries last week. So I will wait. I'll sprinkle only because we talked about it on the show. But what if it is a rat line and we get there on Sunday and then it's just like Khalil Herbert 20 carries and 3 dropped catches?
Yeah.
Although I picked him up in fantasy, so I am such a hypocrite, if that's what you will say, because I picked him up in like the 14th round of my fantasy draft, and I'm saying, I know he's going to get a little bit of play. Like, he should get some points.
You know what I kind of like is David Montgomery over 2.5 receptions.
Ooh. Right? Is that just even on both sides?
I'm not sure what the odds are. I'm seeing it through a third-party site that's just like
just showing what the different lines are. Dude, that is a good one because Justin Fields getting you out of the flats, couple
It's
check downs.
15 and a half receiving yards too.
Dude, I might just make
Unless Ebner's becoming a real third down back.
Dude,
like I think
I'm
that would be
literally
a good
putting a
play.
$5 parlay on the Monty parlay and a Fields. All Monty and all Fields parlay. Only Fields. I need Joey's shirt in the show right now.
Is that Montgomery Fields?
Yes. Yeah. Dude, and then too, like we could get into some of the anytime touchdowns, but any of the Bears players that you pick, as long as you pick the right one, pays out nicely. We assure you of that. So, and think about it like this. They're probably going to score at least 2 or 3 touchdowns, right? Another bet.
I hope.
Hey, Ron said 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and that's the bare minimum for Ron. So the ceiling for this game, though, is probably like 31 points. Like, let's be honest, we're not going to go out there and just absolutely obliterate the 49ers. But
could you imagine though if they came out and put 35 up on the Niners?
Oh, that'd be hilarious, dude. I honestly would
Chicago would be in hysteria on Monday morning talking about it.
Oh my god, dude! The whole national media would be losing their minds because did you see too? We haven't even talked about it. ESPN put out their power rankings for Week 1. The 32nd ranked team in the NFL, the Chicago Bears. So, before my head explodes, I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'll let one of our more mild-mannered hosts explain where they're feeling on this because I am beside myself at the fact that they put us as the worst team in the NFL before a game has even been played.
I think there's a number of teams that are worse than the Chicago Bears. I can think of like 3 of them off the top of my head immediately. And that being the Atlanta Falcons, the Houston Texans, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't understand. I get it, right? The Bears are tearing it down. The Bears are turning it around. They're changing the roster. They're changing everything. But son of a bitch, this team isn't trotting out a bunch of fucking D3 starters. Like, these are still NFL players. You still have Eddie Jackson in your secondary. You have 2 high draft picks in your secondary. You know, you still have a second-round pick from a few years ago in Jalen Johnson. Roquan's not a nobody. The front 4 is quite solid. I mean, you still have Robert Quinn, who's coming off an 18.5 sack season. Like, and most of that was without Khalil Mack. So, like, I don't understand how, again, and you know what it is, and maybe Bdon, I don't know if you put yourself on mute was going to do much, because maybe I'm going to take some of your anger here too. You cannot sit here and tell me that the national media pays that much attention to the Chicago Bears, because they fucking don't. Let's just call a spade here, right? There's the Ron Amatapia coming out again. It's mind-blowing to me how much you hear the national media just sucking off these teams like, you know, the New York Jets are going to be good this year.
That's literally what I was just about to say.
Yeah, like
the fucking Jets, dude. The Jets are not good.
No, the 49er, Trey Lance is the next best thing since Joe Montana. And like, no. Like, you know who's another team I just figured out too who's worse than the Bears? The Seattle Seahawks, who got their shit kicked in by the Bears in the preseason. Like,
I was waiting for you to say them too, because that's who is the actual worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, like you know what it is, Bdon. You know what it is, Quintin. It is national ignorance to the oldest team in the NFL, and to the team in the Midwest, the monsters of the Midway, the Chicago Bears. Nobody wants to talk about them because they're rebuilding. That's plain and simple. That's what it is. Because they're not sexy. They don't have the big names on defense. You know, Chicago's not this glamorous market, right? It's not New York, and it's not Los Angeles. Who gives a fuck? It's Chicago. We're a bunch of blue-collar, take your pail to work on Sunday, and just get the job done. And guess what? If this team starts to rattle off wins, people are going to be, oh, they're fake. They're fake. They're not building anything meaningful. The people who really know, you can tell who's really tuned into the NFL on a national landscape. And I think a lot of the NFL Network people, admittedly, are very in tune. 2 people in particular from the Good Morning Football crew, Peter Schrager and Kyle Brandt, I think are both very in tune to the national landscape as a whole in the NFL. Because both of them even said, they're like, hey, yeah, maybe the Bears aren't a playoff team this year. But, like, they're doing the right things to build this in the correct direction. If this team wins 7 games this year, even, which still hits our over Bdon, it hits our fucking over of 6.5.
Which is
If
plus
they-
150 now.
Oh, I should have waited to bet it. Damn it! But I think we still got it at like 120. It's not a bad bet.
There's
but
still time to get your stock in. Just get more. Just buy more stocks.
buy more stocks. But like, again, this team could win 7 games this year, show meaningful improvement, and have $104 million in cap space next year, with the next best, highest team having $55 million. Are you fucking kidding me? There's nothing more that pisses me off than the national NFL media thinking they know shit about the Chicago Bears.
104
Fuck them.
million.
Fuck their 32nd ranking. I'm gonna cool off now. Quentin, you're more level head. Please take the mic.
Yeah, I mean, so really, I got it pulled up right here, and I'm just thinking it through. Like teams who I think the Bears are better than, assuming young quarterbacks continue to be exactly what they've shown to be. No progression by any young quarterback, or all equal progression across the board. Because I can't sit here and tell you whether Trevor Lawrence is going to take a bigger step than Justin Fields. You know, I can just work off what's out there. To me, the Jets, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Falcons, and the Seahawks are all teams that I would consider the Bears to be probably better than. And then I can also throw in like the Panthers. They got Baker. It's going to make them better, but I still think they're a toss-up against the Bears in a game. If I was betting it, I could see it going either way. It's a coin flip. I can say the same thing about the Dolphins. Until Tua shows that he is more, everything else is just, you know, it's what's the thing in Office Space? Everything else is just flair. It's all just flair until Tua shows that he can do something with it.
In a game, too, not on a social media clip that's been edited.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, honestly, the Steelers, I think, are a toss-up with the Bears. Like, they have a great defense. Don't get me wrong. The Bears took them down to the last second last year, and I don't know if they're a better team this year. And yeah, that's really, I mean, honestly, there's a few other teams I could throw in there as being toss-ups, like maybe Washington. The Lions, I think, are a toss-up. They added a lot of good talent, but until they do something with it, I have a hard time like believing that they're that much better than what the Bears have right now. And so much of it is coaching too. Like I trust the Bears coaching staff a lot. They have a veteran staff, guys who know what they're doing, have taught players, have helped players get off plateaus, reach their potential. Like these guys are all proven NFL coaches, the entire staff. It's an impressive staff. I mean, it's not like we think back to Matt Nagy's staff when he's bringing in Mike Furry, who wasn't coaching anywhere really ever, like on the NFL level to be his wide receiver coach. That's not this staff. This staff is a bunch of guys who have, you know, they have their merits. They're up on the wall and saying, this is what I've done in the league, and they could get a job with just about any team if there's an opening. So that to me goes a long way in this. But the national, like, you know, ESPN doesn't, they like to stoke our market a little bit because it gets views and clicks, and really just makes you say, I got to pay attention to who I'm paying attention to. Like you said, Ron, there's people out there who are really in touch with this stuff and give great takes, and there's people out there who give hot takes, and I'm not a big fan of hot takes personally.
You also have to remember Matt Eberflus has never in his coaching career lost a game as the head coach of a team. Putting that
Undefeated.
out there. Undefeated. 3-0. As a lot pointed out in the comments in a previous show, the Bears have won their last 4 preseason games, but this week, 49ers at home. Week 1, always kind of a weird week, but I want to know some predictions. So, Ron, do you have a final score prediction? And then we'll go offensive and defensive key players for this week's game.
You want them all at once, all rattled into
Just
one
all,
thing?
just all in one Ron Rito.
All right.
So roll it up.
Just in one big old Ron Rito. We'll roll it up for you here real quick. Final score prediction. I think this one's going to be a nail biter. I think it's going to be a close score. I'm going to say 24-20 Chicago Bears coming out on top over the Niners. I think that over hits. Obviously, given my score prediction, I think it's fair over. I really do. The early part of the NFL season is when you can catch on all these overs and everything, because like even Vegas is still trying to figure out where everybody stands. But key offensive player. Obviously, the easy one would just be to say Justin Fields, right? So I'm not going to go that direction. I'm going to go a little more off the board, and I'm actually going to say a guy that you love and adore, Bdon, and that is none other than Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet has a big week this week. Yeah, see, Joey knows. 24-20, that Bears. No, but I truly think Joey says, "Yeah, Ron, get out of my head." But I truly think Cole Kmet is a key this week. And I think he's going to, because everybody has heard all offseason, right, about the connection that Fields and Mooney have. Nobody's talked about, based on what we've seen from camp highlights, the connection that it seems like Cole Kmet and Fields have. And I think Cole Kmet this week could be a game changer, especially down the middle, really opening up, some targets for guys like Mooney, for some guys like, the seven-headed monster that is Pringle, Pettis, insert names here. Like, I really do think he can help stretch the field, and I think that's just going to help the run game as well if Kmet's becoming a monster for the 49ers to have to worry about. So he's my offensive player. My defensive player, this one's going to probably surprise some people. And it's entirely indicative on if George Kittle plays or not, but it's Dane Cruikshank, because he's kind of filling in on that role of like comes in as a third safety who can cover a tight end because he's big and can run well. I really think he's a key defensive player. That's if Kittle plays. If Kittle doesn't play, I'm still going to stick in the secondary. I think Jaquan Brisker needs to be a difference maker this week, and I think he's going to do that from the safety spot. So it's going to be one of the two safeties on defense and Cole Kmet for me on offense.
Q, how about you?
Yeah, so for score prediction, just taking it straight from my article. So y'all don't think I'm piggybacking. 24-23 Bears. So 3-point difference there. And then
is there a safety? Is there a safety in there somewhere?
Nope, just a couple field goals. More than a few field goals. But so offensive player, it's Braxton Jones. He's got to handle Nick Bosa, man. Nick Bosa is going to be the best player on the football field as far as proven production, talent, sitting at the peak of his career, looking for a contract extension after this season. Got 20, been in on 26 sacks in his career, 37 tackles for loss, 160 pressures in 35 games. This guy's a game wrecker. Braxton Jones is going to have his hands full. The Bears need to get him some help there. But even with help, Nick Bosa is tough. And it's a lot to ask of a fifth-round rookie. But if he can do it, it's going to help. It's going to mean so much for the Bears offense because, like I said, he's just a game wrecker. On defense, I'm going with Eddie Jackson. I was between Brisker and Jackson, but since you already said Brisker, I'm going to go Jackson. I don't know how they're going to rotate these safeties. Jackson's one of the best in the NFL with late rotations, which I think they're going to throw a lot out there. But it's also something that Brisker's been skilled at is those late rotations. And they're going to be able to do some fun stuff with the two safeties back there on defense this year. And I think they have a real chance to force some turnovers against Trey Lance in this game from the safety position.
For my score prediction, I'm going to go – I'll say 27-24. I think it's a little bit of a shootout, like over 50 total points. I think the Bears get a little bit of help from Cairo, 2 field goals from him, 3 touchdowns. Offensively, I'm going to go with Monty. I think early in this game, I think we need to set the tempo with the running game to kind of build the foundation for the rest of the offense to flourish, right? So kind of keep the Niners honest on the, front 7 by using Monty a lot early in the game. And then when the defense starts to creep up, that's when you throw Darnell Mooney or Velus Jones over the top. One of the seven-headed monsters, Byron Pringle, and the rest of the gang. Any of those guys can all go up and make plays on this secondary because it's not like you're going up against a top secondary in the league. On the defensive side of the ball, I want to see a big game out of Roquan. Now, you know the 49ers are going to come in here and try to run the football, dictate the line of scrimmage, and try to push us around and really just play bully ball, if you will. That's kind of the 49ers' brand is bully ball. Don't let that happen. Because if you come in, if you come into Sunday and let the Niners kind of push us around at our home field, it's going to be a long Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if Roquan has like 10 to 15 tackles this weekend. Like, I'm not even being – some of them will obviously be assists and stuff like that, but 10 to 15 total tackles, totally not out of the realm of possibility. I know it's just his first game back. He didn't play in the preseason, but you also remember – he didn't sign his contract, so this is a guy that is going to, if you didn't think he already emptied the bucket on every play, is going to leave quite literally everything out there, including his meat right there on the table. But you're not going to come here and find us giving predictions that the Bears are going to lose. So we got all three of us with Bears wins. I'm pretty sure all three of us are going to be on the Bears +7, maybe a little money line too. We had Joey come in and say Bears 24-20. We got another guy in the comments, Scott from Iowa. He's 32-14 Bears. Scott is feeling himself. He said the defense gets 3 interceptions, Monty 115, Fields 250, and a Jackson pick 6. You know what? Add Eddie Jackson interception to the house, to my bet slip. Quintin, I'm going to need to get in touch with you on Sunday to find out the guy, whoever I can go to get an Eddie Jackson touchdown on my bet slip, and we will be fully ready to roll when Eddie Jackson gets his touchdown. That is like 2 years overdue because he got so many of them called back. But other than that, I mean, it's game week. Do we have any final things that we want to get out there before I hit the red button?
Yeah, I got something. So I wrote about this summit in the game preview article, but Matt Eberflus has been a football coach for 31 years. 31 years. He's finally getting that moment to coach his own team, to step on the field and lead his men. I mean, it's what dreams are made of. Like, it's awesome. And he's not just getting to do it. He's getting to do it with the charter franchise. Like, this guy was a star linebacker at the University of Toledo, and now he gets to go coach the team that Bill George, Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, Doug Buffone, Lance Briggs, Otis Wilson, and so many more linebackers just were the stars of. Linebacker to linebacker, head coach of the charter franchise. This is a dream come true, and I'm excited for him and to see him go do it.
Q, you got me ready to run through a freaking wall with that just now. I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna look at a little more analytical note here. I think I'm just excited to watch the training wheels come off, right? I think there are so many uncertainties. There are so many, what ifs, both defensively and offensively, schematically. I'm just ready for the training wheels to come off and see what this team is made of. But son of a bitch, when I watch Matt Eberflus run out on Sunday, Q, I'm going to be yelling and screaming and pumping my chest because that speech you just gave was electric, my friend, and it's got me ready for Sunday. So hopefully Eberflus has the boys ready for Sunday. But like you said, I'm sure he will. This man's been waiting a long time for this opportunity. He's not going to let it go to waste.
Absolutely.
And that's the Eberflus difference as opposed to Matt Nagy and the Wise and all that bullshit. But yeah, Sunday is, by the time you're hearing this episode, only about 48 to 72 hours away. This season is, expectations aren't too high. They're not too low, maybe somewhere in the middle. But us at Bears on Tap will be here to cover it for you guys. We'll be back with you guys right after the final whistle on Sunday to recap. Hopefully a victory, no heartache, no heartbreak week 1. We want to go 1-0 this week, and we'll be on to week 2. But right now, San Francisco's on the clock, and we got to find a way to win a football game this week. I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. You can follow me at Bdon300. You can follow Quintin at ButtKissStats, and then you can follow Ron at Loose on Tap. And like I said, we'll be back with you guys, we'll say about 3:30, 3:45 on Sunday. And bear down.
Bear done.
Bear down.